Some general considerations are, does the client know what to expect? How much time needs to be allocated for the session? What proper attire looks like? And are we really clear on what the client's expectations are so we can make sure there's a congruency between what we expect of them and what they in turn expect of us? Let's take a look at general structure. The general structure of a session is as follows. The first part of the session consists of the greeting. This is where we initially build rapport. The second part of the session is the profile. This is the PAR-Q, physical readiness questionnaires. This is part of the profile that determines the assessment of individuals' goals, needs, wants, and abilities. The next component is the workout itself. This is where we implement the exercise component, as well as correlate goals, needs, wants, and abilities with each component of our exercise selection. In the evaluation, we're going to take a look at two types of information, objective and subjective information. Subjective information is how they're enjoying the exercise, what their level of fatigue is, where objective information are things that we readily observe, such as how well they're executing the exercises that we're recommending. So that tells us whether or not we need to implement exercise progression or regression. And finally is the conclusion. This is where we evaluate their overall satisfaction of the appointment, set expectations, and determine next steps for preceding appointments. It's a couple of things in regards to session specifics. First of all, have your program card ready and reviewed prior to the appointment. Be prepared. Know your game plan from minute one. This allows the client to have confidence that when they show up, you're not getting sorted out in your head what to do. You know in advance and you're ready to take action the second they arrive. Also, it allows us to be prepared well enough to adapt. The more structured our game plan is prior to a session, the more we know exactly how to modify that program quickly when a client comes in and they differ day to day with their level of fatigue, level of stress, level of motivation, and many other factors that affect session-by-session performance. Here are a couple of hidden tasks that might show up within the session. First, document all the sessions that you have performed. It's very important, especially if you're working within a health club, to have a record of sessions that you performed and evidence that payment has been made. Fill out your program cards. This is very important so you can take all the information from the last session and integrate it with all the consecutive sessions. Keep track of session counts. In other words, if somebody buys a 10-session package, you should know every time they come in exactly where they are within their sessions and fill out the appropriate paperwork so you can get paid. Also, make sure that you secure each following appointment before the client leaves. Very often, somebody will come in and they're on a 10-session package, and it's session number 10, and they leave and they come back in, and halfway through the 11th session, you figure out that that session wasn't paid for. That messes up your paperwork, and it really doesn't look good to your fitness manager. So make sure that your clients are up to date with renewals. Upcoming sessions are all paid for, and how you do this is if you know that they're on session number 7 or 8, get them to renew so they can roll easily, effortlessly, and without frustration into that next package. You want to make sure you secure the session's time slots. In other words, if they're not paid in advance, that time slot technically does not belong to them, and that time slot could be taken by another member who's willing and able to pay. So again, we can't overemphasize the importance of keeping records and being up to date exactly where you are in terms of sessions paid versus sessions delivered. Well, keep clients informed of exercise-related events such as outreach, walkathons, bikeathons, fundraisers that they really might want to get involved in. Sometimes, depending on your relationship with your client, you might want to give a confirmation call as a courteous reminder of when they're coming in, as well as continually reiterating what they can expect on their next session, as well as follow-up calls to make sure after each and every appointment, you know exactly how they feel afterward, whether or not they were satisfied, and how to adapt your next session based on their evaluation of how the session went after it took place, after they might have gone home or went to work for the day. Let's take a look at training multiple clients or semi-private clients. Here are some advantages. The first advantage is, of course, increasing revenue per session. You only have a certain amount of time within a week or within a day. Getting involved in semi-private training can allow you to train multiple people at the same time, and by training multiple people at once, you can achieve greater revenue per session. You can also command a lower price point because of the semi-private nature of the session, and therefore lower the barrier to entry for a lot of members. This also creates interpersonal dynamics. A lot of people feed off of each other within a group, and because of the social support and fun, it's something they look forward to doing in the future. You also get social support working in your favor, as well as eliciting social evidence. Let's take a look at what we mean by that. Scientists did a study on 11,900 Japanese who lived in Japan and compared them with those who had moved to Honolulu and to San Francisco. The incidence of heart disease was lowest with the people who chose to remain in Japan. It was a moderate incidence of heart disease for those people who moved to Honolulu, yet they had the highest incidence of heart disease when they moved all the way to San Francisco. Well, this puzzled scientists, so they took a look at why this could be occurring, and what they found was the incidence of heart disease could not be explained by diet, blood pressure, or cholesterol levels. As a matter of fact, the incidence of smoking was even higher in Japan than it was in the United States. What the researchers found was that the Japanese who maintained close ties to their country also maintained close relationships and therefore had a lower incidence of heart disease similar to those living in Japan. Those who became the most westernized were also most likely not to maintain close social ties, and that, the scientists concluded, was why they had an increase in heart disease 3 to 5 times greater than those who remained in Japan. Renowned psychologist and author Robert Cialdini said that a powerful form of influence is social proof. A large influential factor on what we will do is based on the behavioral cues that we get from other people. In one famous study, researchers had an associate stand on a street corner in a very busy metropolitan city and just simply look up into the sky. Well, as this one person was looking up into the sky, people walked by him and he was seemingly unnoticed. But when researchers had a few of their associates stand on a corner and look up at the sky, so many people stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky, they had to actually abort the research study because traffic had come to a complete stop in the middle of the city. In other experiments, an associate would pretend to fall down on the ground and be hurt. Well, if nobody came to their aid, bystanders would walk on and just leave this person seemingly injured on the ground. But in another part of the experiment, one associate would trip and fall and pretend that they fell down and they were hurt, and other associates in the study would immediately rush to their aid. Well, once they rushed to their aid, other bystanders that had no idea that there was an experiment occurring would instantly rush to their aid as well. Well, how come people were so eager to be good Samaritans in one instance and they completely ignored the person in another? Because they were basing their behavior on the behavior of people around them. I mean, think about it. Why do we really care if 4 out of 5 doctors recommend a certain medication, or 4 out of 5 dentists approve a certain toothpaste, or if 4 out of 5 mothers recommend a certain drink? Because we're human. When many people are seen training with you, such as in a semi-private environment, it prompts other people to know it's okay to hire you as well. Group training does present with certain disadvantages, however. The first disadvantage is decreased individualization. Your level of individualization does get compromised as the size of your group grows. Some personality types may not feel comfortable training in a group setting. For them, that might be scary, and they might seek the security as well as the assurance of a one-on-one environment with someone they trust. Also, if you have multiple no-shows and a single member shows up for what should have been a group session, well, they might lose the session unless they elect to convert it into a one-on-one session for the day. Let's take a look at a couple of things pertaining to client retention. We are up against 2 emerging forces in the fitness industry. They are the growth of information and competition. We need to consistently reinvent ourselves in order to offer our clients the greatest results delivered, as well as a peerless experience. Risk is among one of the most prevalent reasons why people will not make a purchasing decision. Trust and familiarity, on the other hand, are among the most influential factors in customer retention. Regardless of your technical competency, if you neglect relationships, your business will suffer. Make a personal investment in your customers and their outcomes. Focus on the outcomes that they desire beyond their goals. How many points of contact do you have with your clients outside of the time you spend with them during each session? Here are 6 steps to increasing retention. Step number 1 is emotional engagement. And we'll go back to this in many different forms and in many different contexts throughout the certification. First question is, does your program progression strategy continually energize and appeal to your clients' highest aspirations in addition to their training needs? Does the session stir them emotionally as well as make sense logically? University of California researcher Paul Ekman demonstrates that certain postures and facial expressions have a profound impact on emotional state. Using an EEG, subjects showed more activity in the left hemisphere, the part of the brain associated with feelings and happiness, when they produced a sincere smile. When they ceased to perform the pattern of movement consistent with a sincere smile, the activity in the ventral left cortex diminished. Dr. William James said in Principles of Psychology in 1890, "We feel sorry because we cry, anger because we strike, afraid because we tremble, and not that we cry, strike, or tremble because we feel sorry, angry, or fearful." Hatfield, Chiappo, and Rapson proposed that not only does our body language and facial expressions control our emotional state, but it's contagious for others as well. Be keenly aware of your body language and posture in addition to the postural alignment of your client. Be conscientious about the messages you send through facial expressions and vocal tonality. For example, if you were watching this and I told you that I'm really excited to be here doing this certification with you, and over the next several hours you're going to hear many different presenters who are at the same level of motivation and enthusiasm I'm at, the first thought that would be in your mind is, oh my God, how am I going to make it through this? And is this guy serious? This seems painful. Make sure that what you're saying matches how you're saying it and what your body is doing while you're delivering that message. Monitor your client's emotional state throughout the session. Is it improving? What sessions did they find especially enjoyable? What was it about those sessions that they enjoyed most? And how can you replicate that every single session? Emotional engagement results from challenging our clients beyond their current scope of possibility. You want to challenge your clients through micro-progression. Too much challenge creates frustration and lack of confidence. Not enough elicits boredom. Let's say you were playing a game of chess. If you were playing someone who had nowhere near the skill level you had, how many minutes would it take before you became completely disinterested? There was no challenge. But if you were playing someone who was a master, you'd be frustrated, because before you had a chance to think, it would be checkmate, in other words, game over, and you would feel frustrated, and that wouldn't boost your confidence, and you'd probably never want to sit down to play the game again. But instead, if you played against someone who was your skill level or just slightly better, that would challenge your ability to strategically implement move after move. The game would be engaging and fascinating and probably entice you to want to play more and more so you can get better and better. It's the same thing with our clients related to their level of challenge within their exercise program. All of us communicate with ourselves and the world around us through one or more of 5 senses. Out of the 5, we use 3 of them predominantly. That's our kinesthetic, visual, and auditory sensory pathways, or in other words, what we touch, what we feel, see, or hear. The greater the inclusion of these pathways into the training experience in a manner that mirrors the communication pathway of the client, the more memorable as well as enjoyable the learning experience. Here's some questions for you. What enduring impression or feeling does your client associate to you in each and every session? And how do you know that? After every 3 exercises, have your client evaluate their experience. How can you adapt and use your talents and program design strategy to incrementally increase, first, your client's perceived level of enjoyment of exercise, and their level of ownership and involvement in their session. The greater your client's association between the session and the level of enjoyment, the greater the likelihood they will adhere to the program long term. Never take anything for granted, or worse, never make an assumption of how your client may or may not evaluate you. We must respect that the training process is merely a means to an end. It's not the training our client desires, but the hope that the transformation that will ensue as a result will dramatically transform their life for the better. Every session we need to reinforce what is it that our client truly aspires to become, what is the distance between his or her aspiration and his and her current reality, and how are we decreasing this distance each and every session. What is our client's greatest source of pain? Remember, people most often will do more to alleviate pain than they will to gain pleasure. If we ever separate the person from the process, not only do we fail to provide a memorable experience, but we can't even claim to offer customer service. Instead, what we're presenting is customer sacrifice. We are never not communicating. Communication is always by default. What we communicate, however, is by design. Step number 2 is uncompromising experiences. When your client's in the locker room changing, what words or adjectives do they use to describe you when they're talking about the experience they have with you with other members? Your client is either your greatest advocate or the greatest hindrance to the growth of your business. Many professionals think of service as being courteous and giving the most you can within the confines of your job description. Well, essentially, uncompromising customer service really happens when we're willing to do beyond what's required, when we're willing to go outside our job description and simply do whatever it takes to satisfy the customer. Performing a session with professionalism, excitement, and delivering superior program design and coaching, that's not extraordinary. It's simply the minimum measure that we need to deliver in order to be retained. I mean, think about it. Why would your client be impressed with something they expected to receive in the first place? Do you think that, who would ever think that when they go in to hire us, they're expecting a lack of professionalism, for us to be completely disenchanted and deliver inferior coaching and program design? So when we do all the things we're supposed to do, it doesn't necessarily score us any bonus points. The word uncompromising means that you are adamant, rigid, and unwavering in your commitment to do whatever it takes to ensure an optimal experience and maximum results for your clients. This does not mean, for example, offering a free session for every 10 they purchase. Industry consultant Thomas Plummer says, never discount, always enhance. It's beyond the scope of this certification to go into all the financial reasons why giving free sessions as a reward for a training package is probably not within your financial best interests. Your facility might choose to do that, and that's okay. But here's our point. If you just deliver what they're expecting, it becomes commonplace. It becomes ordinary, not extraordinary. Instead, do something special that they'll remember. What about tickets to their favorite sporting event? What about tickets to the theater? If someone told you that they'd like to fit into a certain size outfit, what about getting them a gift certificate at their favorite clothing store so as soon as they reach that size goal, they can go purchase an outfit on you? What about to augment their self-myofascial release program? You buy them a massage. This is a great investment in your network as well, because if you're sending business to a massage therapist in your club or within your community, they would be very wise to send you business over anybody else within the community as well. What about sending your client to dinner at their favorite restaurant? See, all of these things cost about what it is you would be spending, especially if you're an independent trainer, on a free exercise session. But what do you think they're going to remember more? The fact that they had 10 sessions with you and they received an 11th? Or the fact that they went out to dinner and had a romantic evening, created a memory, and every time they think about that memory, you are inseparably linked to that positive feeling? What about merchandise from your facility's pro shop? See, this, if you have a pro shop, is also a great idea because it promotes another profit center within your facility. Remember, your facility is an integrated whole. The better every department does, the better you probably will do. You're rarely ever noticed, not to mention appreciated, for service that's within the confines of your client's expectations. It's what you do that's unexpected that differentiates you. I have known trainers on occasion, and when I say known trainers on occasion, meaning in past companies that I've been a manager within, who would drive to a client's house, dig their car out of the snow so they're able to make an appointment. I know other trainers who would willingly sit in their client's car in the middle of the winter to warm it up while they're in the shower, so when their client came out of the club, they wouldn't have to go into a freezing car. Rather, the car would be warm and warmed up and they'd be ready to go. I know trainers who have had hot soup and groceries delivered to the home of a sick client. Now, a lot of times when I present this, I usually hear, sadly, but that's not my job. See, but that's the whole point. If you want more than average results, you're going to have to be extraordinary. Because there's a common misconception that if I put in average efforts, I should get back average rewards. If I put in a good amount of effort, I should get good rewards. But the truth is, with today's level of competition, in today's economy, and with the choices that are afforded to our clients and their ever-increasing complexity of needs, as well as their ever-increasing demands, when we put in average efforts, we get back very poor results. When we do a good job, we get back below average rewards. But here's where that scale flips in your favor. When you are consistently outstanding, you stand out so far from your competition and you cultivate a reputation where the rewards you get back are significantly greater than the efforts you put in. But before you can get back far more than you're putting in, you need to make the decision to do whatever you can to stand out, be distinct, and understand that excellence is not good enough. It's the bare minimum criteria to keep our job in today's industry. We need to be peerless. Jerry Garcia said, "You do not merely want to be the best of the best. You want to be considered as the only ones who do what you do." Step number 3, details. Joseph Pine and James Gilmore in their book, The Experience Economy, recommend mass customization. Mass customization describes the process by which you can combine the low cost of mass production with the experience of individualization. There's a crucial difference between a service and an experience. A service is the delivery of something intangible, whereas an experience stages something that's memorable. Our memory is intimately connected to our emotions. When we're in a peak emotional state, our retention of the event is heightened. What are the seemingly inconsequential things that you do to create an elevated, positive emotional state in your client? Many companies pay meticulous attention to every detail in their environment in order that they can enhance their customers' mood and state of mind. Starbucks aims to create an environment that delivers a better coffee experience. Barnes & Noble's looks to create a better reading experience, and Infinity trademarked the phrase total ownership experience. What is your total training experience? If possible, within your facility, ask your client to describe what type of music puts them in a positive state. What type of music relaxes them, excites them, reminds them of a magnificent time in their life? Now, of course, if you're working in a health club rather than a studio, or if you're independent, you're not going to have as much of an ability, if at all, to do this. But when possible, try to control as many multi-sensory variables within your client's session to elicit a positively memorable experience. Can you provide the type of music for them that they most enjoy? Our olfactory nerves are the ones that are most strongly linked with memory out of all of our other senses. Have you tried aromatherapy, visualization exercises? Can you clearly describe what type of emotion you want to evoke in your client during that session? Can you get them to clearly articulate it? What are the peripheral experiences that you can provide that add to the experience and keep your brand in front of your client? When was the last time you gave a branded gift to one of your clients? Step number 4, become your client's raving fan. Know your customer's life inside and out. Keep records of every significant event in their life that's of particular importance to them. William James said, "The deepest principle in human nature is the need to be appreciated." Find out things about your clients such as their birthday, what's their children's names, their birthdays, holidays that they might celebrate, their occupation, recent accomplishments that they feel really good about, and if they're married, what's their anniversary. This information gives you the opportunity to create meaningful points of contact within your client's life that they can link up to a positive association with you. Not a bad place to be in. Create a file containing information, as much information as we can, for each of your clients. Now transfer every significant date into your electronic or daily planner, if you will. Make sure you enter it 3 days prior to the actual event. For example, if your client's birthday is June 23rd, enter a reminder in your planner on June 20th. This way, if you wanted to send them a card, by the time their gift certificate or their card gets there, it's on their birthday, so you don't miss. Books make great gifts for your clients, as well as a plaque that recognizes their recent accomplishments. Perhaps the most significant is acknowledgement of their children's birthdays, or if their children graduated or did something that they're really proud of. Recognizing those events are especially meaningful to your clients. Harvey Mackay of Mackay Envelope uses a process called the Mackay 66. He gathers 66 pieces of information on every one of his clients in order to create constant contact with them aside from typical business transactions. Harvey Mackay says in many of his books that even when his customers had an opportunity to go with a competitor where they can find a cheaper envelope, they chose to stay with him because of the relationship they had with the company. Now, we're just talking about envelopes here, something very tangible. How much more is that relevant with a relationship-based, intangible delivery, such as experience-based training? Today, Harvey Mackay is not known around the world as an envelope person. Harvey Mackay is known as one of the top speakers and authors and authorities in the subject matter of networking and customer service. Step number 5 is partnership. What areas of your clients' lives can you add value to outside of the few hours a week that you spend with them? Have any of your clients mentioned to you that they're interested in increasing the nutritional value of the foods that they feed to their family? They're interested in the difference between foods they might buy every day in the supermarket versus organic food choices. Do they have a promotion coming up? Do they have a leadership opportunity afforded to them within their organization? Email them articles from the internet. PT on the Net is a really good choice we would recommend if you like, on exercise, health, and nutrition that pertain to various goals that they might have or their family's best interest. Another idea is you can each month browse through various trade publications such as Forbes, Fortune, Fast Company, Wired, Success Magazine, and Entrepreneur Magazine, and etc. that will pertain to their career. When you come across something that's of particular interest or benefit to them, buy them the magazine. It's approximately a $5 investment that will yield exponential returns. Remember, being thoughtful every once in a while is significantly less expensive than having to waste hundreds of dollars, literally, going out and prospecting for new clients because we didn't pay attention to the little things that allowed us to keep the clients we already have. Books, audio tapes, and seminars are a great investment for your key clients. Each community commonly has a listing of workshops and seminars within the area. The relationships that you cultivate with your clients are the strongest undercurrent of the success of your business. The more your client feels that you care about them, understand, acknowledge, and appreciate them, not as a client, but as a human being, the higher they will esteem you. By following the 5 steps in this program, your clients will be more likely to reciprocate through referrals and re-signs. By acknowledging the goals, needs, personal aspirations, as well as interests of your client, you place yourself in a positive way directly into their daily conversation. A passionate endorsement from someone whose life you have impacted is more effective than any other means of traditional advertising and far less expensive as well. Your rewards, financial or personal, again, are directly correlated with the value you deliver to other people. Step number 6 deals not so much with our clients, but with ourselves. Self-reinvention. Gary Hamel and C.K. Prahalad, in their book Competing for the Future, said that there's no such thing as sustaining leadership. It must be reinvented again and again. What that means is our willingness to wake up early every morning, stay up late sometimes, go to courses, continually expand our skill sets, learn and grow so that we can increasingly reinvent ourselves and bring innovative value to our clients session by session, is perhaps one of the greatest competitive advantages that we could develop as fitness professionals.